All right, welcome everyone to the Summer Sustainability Summit brought to you by OneClick LCA. My name is Kim and I will be your host for this session. The summit is a 2-day free online event for architecture, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and sustainability professionals across the construction value chain. We're delighted to have you here to get inspired, get engaged, and get sustainable. As I said, the summit is brought to you by OneClick LCA, the global LCA software empowering the industry to decarbonize and get sustainable. With OneClick LCA, you can comply with more than 80 national regulations, standards, and certifications, access the world's largest construction LCA database with more than 250,000 LCA datasets, and bring LCA into your existing workflows with more than 20 BIM and other integrations to make your sustainability calculations faster and easier. For over 20 years, we've been making the construction value chain sustainable, and you can learn more about us at oneclicklca.com. Now, before we start this session, we would love to hear where you're dialing in from. So please go ahead and let us know from what city you are joining the summit by writing it in the chat. Let's see if we can call out a few cities from our guests. Do we have anyone from Helsinki or Espoo, where I'm staying? Let's see, London, Berlin, Helsinki. Nice, quite a global audience. Welcome, everyone. Good to have you here. Now, let's start our session. I am very excited to be joined by Nikita Shacher, OneClick LCA's carbon expert lead.
Hi guys.
And joining me and Nikita, we have Sallamari Muhonen, the CEO of STK, which is the Finnish Electrotechnical Trade Association.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Sallamari and Nikita. With Nikita and Sallamari, we are going to discuss how trade associations can help reduce industry carbon emissions, both through their own actions and through their member companies. The session is designed especially for association members, associations themselves, environmental advocates, and policymakers, but it's also suited for anyone involved in or interested in environmental sustainability in a more general way. Now, to get things started, I will let our speakers introduce themselves a bit further from my own introduction for them. So, Nikita, could you tell a little bit more about yourself and your work at OneClick LCA?
Yes, of course. So my name is Nikita Chajer. I work as a senior business development manager here at OneClick. I'm responsible for the company's business activities and collaborations, predominantly in the Nordic area. I've lived in Norway for around 9 years now. And before OneClick LCA, I have worked as an architect, energy and climate advisor at Sweco. And I was a customer before joining the company. Yes.
Super. Thank you, Nikita, and good to have you here.
Yeah.
Sallamari, can you tell a little bit more about yourself and your work at STK?
Well, yeah, I'm Sallamari Muhonen, and I work as a managing director for the STK, which is, like Kim said, the trade association for electrotechnical wholesalers. And due to the Nordic practicality in the very same association, there are also members from the electrotechnical industries, both importers and exporters from our country. Total of 107 different size and different kind of companies working on this field. I have a background not in engineering nor sustainability, but like a generalist in public affairs. I used to be a journalist way back then, past decade, but have been working for 3.5 years now for STK, representing the electrotechnical industry. And one thing that probably is relevant on this session is that I'm also a board member on our umbrella organizations in EU, the EUEW, the European Union for Electrotechnical Wholesalers. So associations, that's really my thing for these years.
Super. Thank you, Sallamari, and welcome again. Now, to sort of set the scene for our topic of discussion for today, I would love to kick things off with a first question to Nikita. Coming from sustainability software, how do you think it's important from our perspective at OneClick LCA in general to work together with trade associations?
Yeah. So shortly, like we at OneClick LC have a very clear goal, that is to decarbonize the construction industry as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. This can only happen when we join forces with other organizations in the building industry to realize these decarbonization goals. In OneClick LCA, we have collaborations with various softwares. For example, as you mentioned about the BIM integrations with Autodesk, Graphisoft, Trimble, Tekla, all of these, but also we have really close collaborations with various trade and industry organizations like Green Building Councils worldwide, SDK, for example, in Finland, Branchehuset in Denmark, Stålbyggnads Institute in Sweden, Norwegian Architecture Association, for instance, here in Norway. So very different kind of organizations. And the reason we find this very interesting is because these trade and industry organizations are voices of businesses and advocate market practices that not only help their members, but also are in line with the upcoming regulations or the existing regulations. They help in navigating these companies, how they can actually work in the market, for example. Especially when we talk about EPDs and organizations like SDK and Branchehuset Stålbyggnads Institute, they have a lot of manufacturers. And there is a huge market gap right now where the demand due to regulations, green building certifications for these EPDs and environmental product declarations for products is very high. But the industry knowledge for these type of documentation is still at its preliminary stages. Outside of Nordics, right? There is not much information. A lot of companies and a lot of regulations are answered by using generic data. And that's not really helping with the sustainability shift. So there is definitely a lot of confusion in the market, how to go about it, and how to actually work with these kind of documentations. There are very few amount of LCA experts, and that cannot go. We need to start democratizing this. And with the help of organizations like SDK, we can remove these roadblocks, educate the manufacturers, help them to make efficient and cost-effective processes so that they can actually make these documentations and deliver EPD, making it digitized, for example, and answer to these customer demands or regulatory data, no matter wherever you are in the world. So we are basically seeking to enhance the environmental transparency. We are in the business of generating data and then using that data in the building industry for building projects or infrastructure projects, and help manufacturers and the wider building industry to reduce the threshold and the competency required to make these documentation, make it easy for them to make high quality LCAs and EPDs. And that's basically I would say kind of a complete building industry effort for us to actually realize our goal when it comes to decarbonization. It's very scattered industry, as we know. So when we have to work together basically to go forward.
Yeah.
That's what.
Thank you, Nikita, for clarifying that to our audience and for the sort of the introduction for this whole cooperation. Now, I would like to turn the tables a bit for Sallamari. From your perspective, how do you see the cooperation between SDK and OneClick LCA? Like, how does it benefit you and your members to work together with OneClick LCA?
I'm speaking on behalf of our Finnish association and the trade in Finland. This may be different in other countries, but for us, this is a twofold thing. First, the sort of pressure came from our member companies. There was a lot of confusion in what is going to be required from us, what kind of information we should bring on to the value chain for the wholesalers, and then on to the people that are doing the construction. And the regulation will be coming from EU and also nationally. So it was more or less like a matter of compliance in their minds and trying to find solutions. How do we manage this? What is required? What is the important values that we have to do? And how do you do it in the way that it's fair for everyone? And as an association, of course, we took this seriously and tried to find um, parties or activities, programs, partners that would be useful for all of our different size of member companies. And I think we have been really happy to be able to offer one-click LCA as one solution for the need of having qualified LCA and the certificates in order to have at least the GWP value on the product data. And the second point in particular for STK is that, as a matter of fact, we are a trade association that has developed and runs a product data service in a digital format. So there is a field for GWP value, and it has to be something that you don't just make up, but it has to be acquired through PEP Europe product passport or with EPD. And therefore, we wanted to encourage all the different size of member companies to come up with a standard value and to fill the field on the product data service so that the service itself stays relevant, because now it is a vital part of the wholesalers and constructors. So we had the members' interest and also our own interest as we keep the product data service for the whole industry.
Yeah, thank you, Salamari. That was a good follow-up on this one. And actually, you both touched upon a little bit on the subject of the unclarity there is for manufacturers at the moment when it comes to sustainability documentation or producing EPDs. So a good follow-up question to both of you. Maybe Salamari, you could start first. How can trade associations help with that clarity when there's so much happening at the moment?
Well, we do our best because that indeed is a vital service to our member companies. For myself here in Finland, the public affairs is it's probably a Nordic model that trade associations are expected by the legislators to be in a dialogue, so that whichever requirements there will be in the legislations, that they would make sense in real life in the businesses and not hinder it, but on contrary to provide a sort of a fair rules for competition. And that dialogue is at least one important thing. But of course, we then bring in the information, what is going to be, what you have to comply at the minimum to our manufacturers that are our members. And one has to remember that there are so many different sizes of companies within our trade associations, for instance. So the big ones, they could probably handle the LCA calculations, they would handle the public affairs themselves, but the majority are SMEs that the trade association doing the dialogue, dissemination of the information and providing good partners. That's really vital for most of the 107 members of ours.
Yeah. Nikita, how do you see this? You work with a couple of different trade associations yourself. How do you see this whole unclarity, and how do trade associations help with clearing what is unclear?
Yeah, I think I will start by saying that, hey, sustainability has to be good for business as well. And that is what trade associations basically promote as well. As Salamari said, that the main requirement for EPDs right now is coming because either the associations themselves are putting in requirements like having the GWP value in the digital data that they are making, for example, or the regulations or the certifications or the industry itself is asking for these documentations. This is basically meaning that there is a lot of competitiveness that is expected in the market that's going to come. And we need to provide this kind of documentation. It's not just about comparing products with cost, it's also comparing products with carbon and evaluating those. Especially, you already see that in the Nordic market, where products are not just compared based on their cost, but also with the GWP value. And for example, in Norway, there is 30% weightage on environment for any procurement processes, government procurement processes. So this is going to get more and more stricter. And trade associations especially can help manufacturers navigate all these uncertainties. How am I supposed to make these documentations? If these are SMEs, it's a significant amount of investment if they go to the traditional route of making these LCAs and EPDs, and they most likely will not have in-house competence to develop these. So they do need support. They do need help to navigate so much misinformation and clear all the doubts, and how to work about these sustainability documentations. For trade associations, basically they can put in requirements for their members that, hey, you need to provide this data so that we can actually help with easy flow of information amongst manufacturers, and work as we work normally as business as usual, educate their members, help develop guidelines, let's say documentation that they can refer to understand how they are actually navigating this, making these documentations, and best practices to answer these requirements. All of these kind of documentation or help or webinars or educating these manufacturers is extremely important. What we see in one-click LCA is the biggest gap that we have is the competence of doing these kind of work, and that can only be achieved when we start shifting our focus from just having LC experts doing this work, but the complete building industry doing the carbon calculations and documenting these. So it's very important to lower the threshold of competency that is required. And I think trade associations are a perfect bridge between softwares like one-click LCA, for example, and the manufacturers to be able to navigate between, to find these documentations and to be able to answer to these requirements.
Yeah. Thank you both. So trade associations basically help their members navigate in all of this world. That's
Yes.
super.
Yeah, and I would kind of, if you want to squeeze it into sort of a short piece of philosophy, I'd say that the trade association's role is not to tell what to think, but what to think about. So that wakey, that this is coming, you should be prepared. These are your options. So we are not saying that this is what you should do, but it's rather than this is what you should be prepared for, and these are your options. That's what we do through webinars and newsletters, just like Nikita said.
Exactly.
I think the point of trade associations helping companies comply with the sustainability regulations and sort of helping navigate is, we could say, is usually within the ambition of trade associations in general, but SDK has taken that a bit further. You mentioned you have your own sort of database. Could you elaborate a little bit on that side of your work?
Oh yeah, well that's something that existed before my time here at STK. Actually, the Finnish wholesalers have been wise enough to form this kind of a product database. Well, it was a catalog 50 years ago, of course, to begin with, and then it became in CD-ROM format, and now it has been almost 20 years in a digital database. And it's important it has been important for the whole value chain, also the electrotechnical installers, so that they find the right products for right time. And all of these parties in the value chain very soon, or actually already today, are required to pass on information on at least the GWP. So that's why we have been early on trying to get the field on the database for the value in the national standard. And we are also using the ETIM, if you don't know it yet, which is a sort of a data model for construction products, so that they would also have the readiness to include this value. And then it's easier for, I think it's mostly Northern European countries that run this kind of a product databases, that there would be, so that we can pass on the information so that the whole database stays relevant. It has been important, and I hope that with these activities and together with companies like One Click LCA, we can keep it relevant in the future.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Salamari? So, how
Sure.
many of these members that you have in SDK have this kind of LCA data already in their in your system?
Not too many. I have been urging them that's why we have been so active in doing webinars and giving an example that hey, for even SME, one-click LCA might be a suitable way of doing it. We know that one of the big companies, they have their own experts in the house. Some use consultants, some use a combination of these, so that the big ones have been the ones going forward even last year. But I think this year we have seen a lot of activity with the smaller ones. And I hope that we get more and more information based on EPD in our database. So considering that we have like 600,000 products on our database at the moment, I think it's like 3% that have the sort of value there that is based on EPD or Eco Passport of some other sort of a certified certificate.
What surprises me here is that Nordics are kind of like assume that the sustainability shift is happening here and everyone has this amount of data and everything. But even for Finland, for example, as you mentioned, for SDK, the amount of data that is right now generated for LCA documentations and EPDs is still literally in its preliminary stages. We need to scale up
True.
at a level that is competitive for all the companies, not just for big industry players, because otherwise we go to a risk where when small SMEs and companies don't provide this kind of data, they are automatically out of consideration in procurement processes or
Yeah.
being members of organizations like SDK cannot compete. And that's something that's extremely important for us as software providers or people
Mm.
working making EPDs, not just consultants or program operators, as well as associations to really help the complete building industry to reduce the threshold. So that's extremely crucial to actually make a big dent in the sustainability shift and actually reduce these emissions and provide the data.
Indeed. Indeed, and of course, one has to understand that it's not like a quick thing. You just insert stuff and then you have the value. So I think the amount of interest from last December on, when we publicized this sort of a cooperation with One-Click LCA to the STK members, there's been a lot of interest, and I think, as far as I know, Kim, you know better, there should be quite a lot of processes going on. So I expect that in the later half of this year, there will be like way more, so that I'm really glad that many of our member companies have sort of set their minds and roll their sleeves and get down into action, so that we soon will be having more. And they are required, those values. So it's not just compliance. It's really needed in the business.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you both for elaborating on that question. Very good thoughts. And it feels like there's a sort of working model we have in the Nordics. Do you feel like, Nikita, working with the Nordics trade associations, are there some perhaps learnings to be taken, especially from how STK is operating or how trade associations work in the Nordics? Is there like a working model in the Nordics that could be expanded elsewhere?
I think Nordics are doing really well when it comes to the trade associations. For instance, are very very forward thinking and ready to be prepared for the new regulations that are coming in, especially the collaborations we have with various associations and organizations. They're very similar to STK as well, who have a specific agenda when it comes to sustainability, that they need this kind of data. Either they have a database or either they have some plans in place to help manufacturers navigate the sustainability shift. Either one of these two. And if the trade association actually decides that, the manufacturers also for example, I think SDK has also had that experience, and we have experienced that with many trade organizations, that they join the trade organizations because they have a specific focus on sustainability. Let's say it's a small company, they don't know how to actually navigate this. They come to us, they talk to us, and we say, hey, have you heard about SDK? I think they will be able to also help you out. And that's what it has been, a two-way street, which is very interesting for us. And I have observed
True.
this also in Denmark with the branch in Husat, that the members are talking to us and then talking to them and actually collaborating between both organizations. For example, with STK, we have special offers as well for education courses. In One Click LCA, as many would know, we have a lot of free material available to educate yourself, and that really helps for them to get information that they need. And also talking to organizations like STK or other trade organization, there is a very good harmony and a collaborative spirit in the Nordics. But there are then again many associations who are not doing much in this context. They might have very less amount of members. They might not have that big of a focus on that. The market is a little bit difficult right now, so they have more focus on economy. It can be anything, but sustainability is not going to go anywhere. We need to decarbonize, and the rules are going to get stricter and stricter. So, if you really want to help your members, you need to start thinking more proactively about sustainability. Outside of Nordics, there might not be a lot of big amount of discussions about this. This needs to change. And what I have observed in my short time of experience, 5 to 6 years of working in this industry, is that anything that goes in the Nordics easily has a trickle down effect in rest of the Europe and also around the world when it comes to standards, compliance, and how you actually have to go about it. So there are really good set examples that you can easily refer to see how you or your organization has to actually navigate with coming to applying regulations or um, what SDK did, for example. You can actually do the same thing in your organization in a country which is outside of Nordics, for example. So there is, I think, a really really good collaboration here, at least in the Nordics. Is the only experience I have so far. So I think it's quite exciting.
It is indeed, and I could add that from us Nordics, I mean, it's not I don't mean it as a warning to other market areas that maybe online, but I feel that the larger companies that are within our association, they definitely want to find like competitive edge from the sustainability, not just that you meet the requirements and you're in the game,
Yeah.
but they use the data that they find out through the EPD process that, okay, how can we do it better? How can we make these products even better, so that it's not just about having the value there and being in the sort of a basket of choice, but they want to be the best. So the others better join, because we as Vikings will be coming.
Vikings will be coming. I think that's a good end to this section of the questions. The,
Perfect.
I have at least one more thing that I really want to find out, because when it comes to trade associations working together, are you working together? How are you communicating with other associations to advance the sustainability agenda?
That's probably to me. Yeah, we in Finland, I think the NGOs and trade associations, we are sort of a acknowledged part of our system. So yes, we are active in the discussion. We are part of Eurocommerce and the Finnish branch of that. So there's a lot of technical trade and technical wholesalers having their own associations, and we are indeed in dialogue with them. So because electrotechnical is just, we are the most advanced part, because we have the tradition of having a product data system. The most of the construction, wood construction products, concrete, whatever, they don't have database, so they are really lacking the place where they would put the GWP value that they achieve. So yes, we are doing a lot of cooperation in order to make the leap to sustainability and having the data on it.
Yeah, and that sort of goes into the territory of influencing the policymakers as well to make these like
True.
bigger
True,
choices.
of course, because we don't want to have legislation that hinders from our sort of exporters, and we don't want to have legislation that unnecessarily hinders us doing business, but sort of that it makes sense and that is fair to all the parties, because equal playing field, that's what all the legislation should be of.
For sure. Nikita, any sort of hidden potential you see in trade associations working together?
I think SDK is doing really fantastic already. So I would say go by example, look who OneClick LCA is collaborating with or collaborate with us actually. It doesn't have to be like, a specific deal that we need to make. You can actually just provide OneClick LCA existing educational material to your members if you don't want to go through a collaboration with us, for example. But there are so many ways for associations to actually help their members. What we basically want to foster is more collaboration with these organizations, try to help the market decarbonization, and also foster transparency when it comes to the data. So trade associations can really help us with providing these kind of data as well. Who knows, we will be able to use much more detailed data because they don't have just GWP value. They have a lot more other background information about the products, which can actually make tools like OneClick LC much more market friendly, let's say, in order to do financial cost and carbon calculations, all those kind of things, which we already have in our systems, but not the amount of data that trade associations have when it comes to, let's say, the GTIM number or the specific numbers that the marketplace is using. And all those kind of things are going to get standardized because EU is coming with specific rules and regulations regarding how to standardize these EPD documentation and use it actively in the marketplace. And once that is in place, the possibilities are going to be endless. And the market will open up in a dimension that we have actually not seen right now. Yet it is slowly and slowly building up, but it will really, what can you say, like bloom or whatever, like, in the coming time, in the coming 2-3 years, it's going to be a very interesting place to look at, where you can actually do a lot of decision making for your company and your processes in softwares, for example, like OneClick LCA, fostering data that is generated by organizations like SDK or based on the regulations coming from the European Union. So there's a lot of work still laid out for us, a lot of collaboration that needs to happen.
Thank you both for answering these questions. We'll actually move on to some more questions later on from our audience, but let's take a bit of a breather from the questions. And actually, before the session, we had a discussion with Salamar and Nikita on what would be the top 3 takeaways to take for our audience from this discussion. And we actually have 3 takeaways highlighted. And I would ask you to read these and elaborate a bit on why we wound up on these 3 takeaways for our audience. Nikita, perhaps you could start.
Yeah, I have a very standard answer, let's say, but based on the discussions that we have today, like in OneClick LCA, with the partnership that we're trying to focus on shattering the affordability barrier. So when you want to make EPDs, it can be quite cost intensive. It doesn't have to be. This process needs to be scalable, reliable, and fast, so that you can actually provide information when you have to, with various projects, for example, and make this data easily. So basically, we have to partner up, and organizations are more than welcome to, find different levels of partnership with OneClick LCA. For manufacturers, you are really not alone in navigating this. You can take help of trade organizations that you're already members of, or you can ask, just directly go to OneClick LC Academy, for example, just to understand with our EPD bootcamps and already existing a lot of help materials that you can actually refer to understand how this works. But basically, going to your trade organization or talking to us, we'll be able to help you just to simply navigate how you should go about this and help you define a path that can be very appropriate for your company size and your goals with making these documentation. And of course, collaborating more with trade associations. Like as a standard, we always do a lot of webinars with these trade organizations to help uh, spreading the information, let's say, and clearing the air, making it easier for manufacturers to understand the complexities and how easy it can be. It doesn't have to be so tedious and a big headache for you. It can be easy as well. So, yeah, the three takeaways is that the main is that you are not alone. Talk to softwares like OneClick LC or talk to your trade organization, and you will be able to get some clarity on how you should go about it. Yeah, that would be my takeaway, I would say.
Thanks, Nikita. And Salamari, anything you want to elaborate from these top 3 takeaways for our audience?
Yeah, we agreed on these three, and indeed, from our point of view, from the association's point of view, indeed, I completely agree what Nikita said. But of course, our view is that the "you're not alone" is a message to individual member companies that hey, why to think and worry about something that you can put the association to look for, and I was really happy that in the very beginning of our cooperation with OneClick LCA, we could have one of our member companies, Ensto, a big manufacturer in Finland and importer, is that they could share their experience. Because of course, hearing from a peer what they learned through the process is way more important than a software company could tell, because it's like more or less like advertising, or what an association tells. But it's always sort of a relieving to know that okay, others are also doing this and they're sharing what they learned through the process. And of course, we as trade association, our work is to serve the companies, so we're trying to find our partners and solutions and bring a sort of a smorgasbord for our member companies to pick theirs from, so that they can make a wise choice.
Super. Thank you both for summarizing our top 3 takeaways. We will soon jump to our questions from our audience. But before we do that, I would love to let you know a little bit more about OneClick LCA's EPD software platform that was also referenced earlier. So with the EPD generator, you can quickly and easily automate your EPD generation process to demonstrate your environmental impact and to get your product specified and purchased for construction projects. So if you would like to book a demo and get advice on decarbonizing your products, just click yes in the poll that you should be seeing now on your screen. We have a team of EPD experts that are happy to consult with you and help you understand how to differentiate your products and ultimately win more business with EPDs. Now, let's jump to our Q&A with our speakers. Let's see if we can highlight some of the questions from our audience. Here's the first one. Can Salamaris share any specific benefits that STK has experienced from its cooperation with OneClick LCA? For example, have they gained new members?
Well, actually, that's a pretty direct one, and I'll be brutally honest with you guys. We were expecting to sort of increase the membership satisfaction within our existing members, but indeed it did happen unexpectedly that quite a few of companies that had been involved in our product database and were sort of on the fringe but not members yet said that okay, we want to have the member benefits because you have this sort of a cooperation with OneClick LCA will be joining. So that was like something that we weren't targeting at, but we are of course super happy that it happened. So that was for the association quite a benefit. But I really hope that our initial target to increase the satisfaction of our services is there, but that I will learn later. But indeed, yes, we did gain new members.
So glad to know that as well.
Me too.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street, it seems.
It turned out to be, indeed.
Super. I think we have at least 4 additional questions, so let's jump to the next one.
Mhm.
What are the next steps for the partnership between STK and OneClick LCA? Whichever wants to start.
I think what is going to happen, like in the next weeks, we had this webinar with Ensto sharing their experiences and us explaining the basics on EPD production and using the software. Then I have made tiny clips out of the webinar, and they are like teasers, and I will promote that in social media in order to gather more companies and more people to watch the whole webinar, because that was really a good one. So that's what's going to happen even during the summer. And I expect that we will have more information dissemination in form of webinars and blog posts during the fall of 2024, and we'll see what the demand among our member companies will be. But I have seen process in taking these tangible steps into sustainability and proving it out with the EPD. So we'll see, but that's what's going to happen next.
I can also maybe add to it. It's basically there is so much new information that's going to come from the European Union in general. Like I, after joining OneClick LC, I feel like I've had a new master's myself because there's so much new things that keep coming in,
Indeed.
and I think this kind of information is also needed by manufacturers as well. They are also navigating in the same boat as us with new regulations, information coming in. So fostering this partnership with STK, educating the members, and that would be, I think, a very big focus for OneClick LCA. And also, I would say maybe there are doors that will open in the coming time where we will be mutually sharing data with organizations like STK, where we have, for example, we get the data from them when it comes to the other um, let's say the IDs for JITIN number or those kind of things, and an identification of products. That is something that we are very interested in exploring in the coming time, and are already looking forward to understanding how this is going to be. This is going to develop in the coming actually few months. In this year itself, we will have much more clarity. So that would be, I think, also some of the.
And I would like to add to anyone listening that our database is it's available on the internet. There's also interface on the internet, but of course through API for different planning programs and so on. So it's free. We are not blocking this into some qualified members only. So, but it is in Finnish. So that might be a hinder for some, but the data is there. As soon as the members, the manufacturers fill in the GVP values there that they have achieved through EPDs or eco passports, then you can check it out, and we will have a database to make analysis on. But I expect that is something that will happen early next year.
Nice. I think we have room for at least a couple of more questions. Let's see. All right. We have EPD as a manufacturing company of fiberglass pipes, but our challenge is to compare the impacts, especially in human and eco toxicity. What do you recommend?
This is for Nikita, definitely.
Oh, this is actually above my competence as well, I would say. But EPDs is mostly focusing on the emissions coming from. Also, like there are some impacts when it comes to ozone layer depletion and other kind of impacts, but it is focusing mostly on environmental consideration. I would say maybe I'll send you an email or some documentations that we might have when it comes to human and ecotoxicity, what can be done. But I would say this is a little bit out of the scope when it comes to what EPDs are actually documenting. This is more focused on environmental product declaration, how the name dictates. So that's something that basically there is a lot of amount of work that still needs to be done when it comes to these human and ecotoxicity or other aspects of sustainability. That's actually in our future pipeline. We have, for example, a biodiversity tool as well, where you actually can document what kind of harm these products are doing to the nature as well. And there is a regulation in England already, in the UK, uh, but there is not much happening outside of England when it comes to regulation. There is already part of the regulation there. So when it comes to these kind of parameters, when you're looking at natural biodiversity loss, all of those kind of things are very crucial, and there is not so many tools out there which can support this. And that's also part of One Click LCA's roadmap, to provide a complete holistic sustainability overview. So LCA is one part of it, EPDs is one part of it, but there is such a long way for us to go for documenting other kind of aspects which are harmful for nature or humans or animals. Yeah, but I'll try to find some document, and we have your email, so I'll send you some information forward, speaking to our EPD expert team and coming back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikita, for answering the best of your capabilities. I think you still found a good, profound answer for this tough question.
Yeah,
Let's take one more question before we move on. It was mentioned that larger companies in STK are using sustainability as a commercial edge. Can you explain this a bit more?
Well, I'd say like a competitive edge. So if you have better products than the competition and you can prove it with EPD, then they expect that those construction projects that aim to be way better as far as carbon emissions are concerned, then of course they will choose the one that can prove that, hey, we have developed our products to be really, really good. I think there are international ones, ABB, Prismian, that have factories in Finland, even though they're international companies, and the Finnish branch is our member. I think those guys are pretty proud of the work that they have done based on the data and then improving. So it's not just, like I said a couple of times, it's not just complying that, hey, now we have a value, but it is that now that we have calculated this value, we know that we can squeeze this and this better, and then have some competitive edge in the toughest of markets so that your products stand out and you can prove it.
I can add to this as well. So when we talk about One Click LCA, we have world's largest database when it comes to integrating every single EPD that's published around the world. We update our database weekly and make all these EPDs in digitized format. If you know anything about EPDs, you would know digital data for EPDs is very less, and all of the EPDs mostly around the world are in PDF formats. And to digitize this data takes a lot of work and a lot of competence to actually know that everything has gone forward and it's in accordance to standards. And in One Click LC, I can give you an example from myself and my time at Sweco. I was a consultant using One Click LCA and comparing products with each other and giving advice to my customers and the building procurement people and the projects that which product they should go with, because there is a capability in the software to compare various EPDs with each other based on the standards, for example, and find the greenest solution possible for that specific project. That's already been happening for a long time, just to mention. But when we talk about just EPDs, EPD is nothing but a transparent way of documenting emissions of your product. So you cannot actually hide anything. There is no way to hide. You have to actually document the emissions that are coming from your product. But then the software that we have, it's not just an EPD generator that you put in numbers, you put in the information, and you generate an EPD. You can actually actively benchmark your products with your competitors, find suppliers in the system because we have all the world's LCA data, and then also do R&D to actually see where these emissions are happening in your products and try to find sustainable solutions. So let's say you're using a lot of aluminum in your products, try to use some recycled aluminum or use recycled content, make your processes better, for example. All of that can be done, for example, with One Click LCA. And that's, I think it's one of the most powerful ways to actually be competitive and have a very good edge and an oversight over your competitors, that how are you actually compared to your competitors, and how actually consultants are looking at it in real time in actually projects. So that's something that you just need to actually just take a demo with us to know how efficiently and magically it works. Like, it really, like, kind of can get very addictive. For me at least it was, because it is so much data and so much good data when we are digitizing these LCA information, that you can give actual advice on how to reduce and decarbonize these construction projects. So it's a lot of fun when you start once you start working with LCAs, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you both. Unfortunately, at this point, I need to say thank you for our audience questions, and thank you for answering the audience questions and the questions from me earlier. Our session is coming to an end, but before we wrap it up, I would love to use this final chance to highlight OneClick LCA's Low Carbon Manufacturing Awards 2024. This award is meant to celebrate sustainable practices and low carbon solutions in manufacturing, and it's open to manufacturers of all sizes across all industries. So this contest is your opportunity to gain global visibility through extensive media exposure, benchmark your products against peers and competitors, and obviously, ultimately, win more business. And lastly, Nikita already mentioned our academy, so I would like to highlight that. Our academy has multiple free sustainability training programs, and the trainings are part of our commitment to train 1 million low carbon experts by 2030. You can access hundreds of hours of content and course materials at the academy, or attend one of our live boot camps for a comprehensive training on EPD and LCA concepts with our in-house experts. We actually have one coming quite soon. You can actually enroll it through the QR code, Summer EPD Bootcamp, by scanning the QR code on the slide, or just go directly to academy.oneclicklca.com. Next up in our Sustainability Summit, you should stay tuned for our talk with Hydro sustainability leaders, who will be discussing EU sustainability trends and the role that carbon-intensive materials are playing in it. So stay tuned for that session starting very, very soon. Finally, we are always happy to hear from you. So if you would like to contact us at OneClickLCA, please visit oneclicklca.com or follow our LinkedIn account or our YouTube channel with a lot of valuable content about decarbonizing the industry. Huge thank you to our speakers, Nikita and Sallamari. Thank you for our audience. That is all for now, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.